Hi, welcome to UND Sports Zone. Joining me today is Wayne Nelson of the Grand Forks Herald, sports editor, and Brad Elliott Schlossman, Grand Forks Herald sports reporter. We'll start with talking about last weekend's hockey series at UND. Brad, overall general impressions of the weekend?
I thought UND played fairly well as a whole on the weekend. I think Anchorage gave them a much better game on Saturday than Friday. They won Friday night 4-1, really kind of dominated that game from the start. And Saturday was more of the type of game we expect to see out of Anchorage, which is you may win, but you're going to have to really grind it out and win a lot of battles. And, that game was a lot more difficult. They ended up scoring a late goal to tie it up and get 3 points out of the weekend.
This might not be the average Alaska team a lot of people are thinking about or have thought about in the past, right, Brad? They've made some strides. They've played some teams tough, and Dave Shack was pretty impressive what they did Saturday night.
Yeah, Dave Shack said that was their best game of the year Saturday night. So I think we've seen both Anchorage teams this year. The first game of the year, they were not good at all. And if they play like they did the first game of the year up in Fairbanks when UND played them, they're not going to win a lot of games. If they play like they did Saturday, I think they're going to win quite a few games, and then if they don't, they're going to be a real pain for other teams to try to win those games.
Well, listening to Dave Haxtell, he was pretty complimentary toward Alaska on Saturday night. He said his team had a lot of jump early on Friday, but maybe a split second slower on Saturday?
Yeah, they didn't really seem to start clicking until the end. I think they switched up the lines a little bit at the end. They put Rocco Grimaldi up with Danny Cristo and Corbin Knight on the top line. That seemed to give the team a lot of energy. They scored the late goal with those guys together, and in overtime when those three were together, they were pretty electric.
I think UND fans also are going to be wanting to watch Rocco Grimaldi on a nightly basis. Didn't get to see the series, but obviously he is an electric player.
Yeah, there's a play in overtime where he picked up the puck in his own zone, and everyone in the stands could see that it was him and the defenseman, and he was still in his own zone when he had the puck, but the whole place stood up because they knew it was about to happen, and he's that type of player. He's only played a couple games here at UND, but all the fans already knew that he was going to blow by a defenseman and create a scoring chance, which he did, and the goalie ended up making the save on that, but that's just kind of the excitement he brings to the table, and everyone knows that already.
You've covered a lot of hockey, and you've seen a lot of electric players, a lot of exciting players. Where do you think he's going to wind up in UND?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a guy quite with his skill level and speed where he can just pull off moves all the time. Like Matt Fratton's a different type of player where he could physically dominate, and he had that really good shot. Rocco's a little different, but he also has a real good shot. Everyone talks about his speed and everything, but his shot is quite a weapon too.
What about the goaltending battle going on between Saunders and Gothberg? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, they both split starts this last weekend. Gothberg started the first game, played well, got the win. I still think Saunders is probably the number one guy right now. But Zane Gothberg had a really good junior career, comes in with a lot of accolades, and I think they want to get him games too. But right now, I'd say Saunders is the number one, but don't be surprised if we see Gothberg at any time.
Corbin Knight, 99 career points.
Yeah, he came close to getting number 100. In fact, Derek Forwarth's game-tying goal, Forwarth thought that Knight would have tipped it in, and that would have been quite a way to get a number 100. But that's a pretty good milestone. There's not many guys that get 100 points nowadays in college hockey, and certainly not this early in their senior year. So Danny Cristo is already a member of the 100-point club, but Corbin will be joining him shortly.
I think a lot of people talk about Cristo too. What kind of a series he had? He was, waiting to see what kind of a year he was going to have, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good year from this first series.
Yeah, he had a really a big series. He had 4 points in 2 games. I think they lost Saturday night up in Fairbanks, and the team didn't have a lot of energy. I think he's an energy player. As much as everyone talks about his skill, he's a guy that kind of sets the pace of the team, and he plays at a fast pace, and when he's going, I think the guys kind of follow him.
Okay. How about we're looking at Boston this weekend? What do you think is going to happen? Any predictions?
Well, they're a really skilled team, so if I had to predict something, I'd say probably a split is most likely. they have a lot of skilled players up front. So with UND skilled players, BU skilled players, I'd say the fans are probably going to be in for a treat this weekend. A lot of exciting hockey.
So BU will fly in. What day did they usually fly up?
They'll fly in Thursday, as long as we don't have any problems here at the Hurricanes.
So we'll know if it's canceled by probably Thursday morning.
Yeah, I would say so. I think we'll know for sure whether they're here or whether they may have to make some adjustments in any way. But as of now, everything's on the go.
Okay, and just touch on women's hockey a little bit. They didn't quite make their all-time attendance record last weekend, huh?
Yeah, they fell 10 people short. They had 3,191 people the first game. So really good crowd, though. Probably one of the higher crowds you'll see in the country this year. And they lost twice to Minnesota, but the way Minnesota's been beating teams and the way UND hung in there, I think it's probably a weekend they can take some confidence from.
Wayne, moving on to football. Montana didn't treat our boys so good this weekend.
Montana State's a very good football team. Very good. It was after UND had beaten Montana the week before, 40-34. A lot of speculation about this game, how it was going to go, how UND was going to travel out to Bozeman to play the Bobcats. For about 5 minutes was a game, and after that, Montana State just turned it on and wound up winning 55-10. Probably one of the worst losses I've seen for UND, covering all the games over the years. But Montana State, very, very good team. I've been asked a couple times, who's the best team I've seen so far this year? It's got to be Montana State. Eastern Washington's probably a close second. And right now, it's a matter of just putting together a winning season. They're 4-5. They got 2 games left. It's going to be tough. They're going to play Southern Utah this week. Southern Utah, I think, may have a quarterback that plays in the NFL next year, and Brad Sorensen. He's getting a lot of looks from NFL teams. Whether he's drafted or not, I don't know, but I think he has a shot to be drafted. He's good. He's 6'5". He can throw it around, and Southern Utah beat Eastern Washington last week. So the schedule is not getting any easier for North Dakota. It's been a brutal schedule, but that's just the way it is. That's the way the schedule broke. They played Cal Poly, Northern Arizona, Eastern Washington, Montana State, and now Southern Utah. Not an easy road. Nobody in the Big Sky's had it that tough, but that's what UND signed up for in the Big Sky, and we'll have to see what happens. But defensively, they're really banged up, and it's going to be a challenge.
Sorensen threw for quite a few yards last weekend against the number 1 team in the country.
Yes, he did. So. And he is, like I said, he's been one of those guys on the NFL radar for quite a while, and I think he's going to get a shot. And Southern Utah has had pretty good success against North Dakota the last couple of years, and for whatever reason, North Dakota dominated early in that series, but Southern Utah has really kind of turned it on here in the last couple of years, and it's a tough team to play for North Dakota.
Offensively, last weekend, Braden Hansen didn't have a lot of time, and there's probably some reason for that.
Well, that's true. The North Dakota lost Darren Deney, one of their offensive linemen, that really changed the flow of the game. Then they had to start mixing linemen around, and the next thing you know, Montana State unleashed that pass rush, and they sacked Hansen 7 times, 8 for the game for the Bobcats. Very, very fast defense. I think it's one of the fastest I've seen. I know Coach Chris Mussman was saying the same thing, that the front 7 was as fast as that they've ever seen at the FCS level. And Southern Utah presents other challenges, but they've got to get that offensive line, kind of healthy, and see what they can do. They got 2 games left. Southern Utah, Northern Colorado, and that's the mission now is for a 6-5 season.
And you saw Denarius McGee, the quarterback for Montana State last weekend. We've heard all about him and Walter Payton candidacy for him. And what did you think? I
think he's a very, very good player. He's athletic. He doesn't try to force things like a lot of athletic players will try to just take off and run. He sees the field so well. He can throw it. He can run it. He's got great receivers. He's only a junior, and he's setting all kinds of records out of Montana State. And that's what I've noticed about the Big Sky so far. A lot of skilled players who are young. They seem to get them early, develop them, put them on the field right away, and then ride them. And McGee's another one. And Eastern Washington has a freshman quarterback that is going to be very good. And the whole league is like that. They've got a lot of young, skilled players, and I think that's what UND is seeing through the first go-around in the Big Sky.
So the defensive recruits they're going after, they'll have some fun the next few years, I guess.
Well, I think so. I think what's one of the things on North Dakota right now is the depth on the defensive side of the ball. It's lacking, and they've got to address that in the offseason. I think they will, and they've addressed other areas. Receiving corps is as good as it's ever been at UND, and we've seen that this year. And now they're just going to try and catch up defensively, and defensively they've struggled. There's no question about it. So, and that's the mission now, is to shore things up on the defensive side of the ball.
Any predictions for the weekend?
Well, let's see. It's only Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
I think North Dakota's played well at home. They've played well at times on the road, but not consistent. They played very well at Sac State, which now is making a run for the playoffs. And they handled Sac State. They've struggled a little bit on the road. They played exceptionally well against Montana. I would think that UND has a pretty good shot at winning this game, but it's probably going to be high scoring because that's just life in the Big Sky.
This is a team they actually are familiar with, too. Most of the Big Sky, they aren't.
No, and they've had a lot of history with Southern Utah in the Great West, and they played them before as a Division II school. Mm-hmm. UND went out there and handled Southern Utah, in 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. But Southern Utah got good in a hurry, and now they're a typical Big Sky team. Tough to play.
Be an interesting weekend.
Yeah, it will be fun.
Lots of sports in Grand Forks this weekend.
Right.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you next week.